guys ready for spring break? Hey, hey. All right. When I say hey, you say hey. Ready? Hey. Hey. Get you guys buttered up for spring break. Okay. So if we could go around and get everybody's names and what your titles are, that would be phenomenal. And after we get names and titles, we can kick it off to some questions. Got a few questions for you guys, and then we can do a Q&A. Cool? Nice. All right. So how about we start here?
I'm Heather Qader. I run the Qader Group. I'm also an adjunct professor here. And my business, we do operations management and social media management. Yay!
Hi, I'm Meg Wherrity. I work for the Fox Center for Student Professional Development on the Employer Relations team.
And good afternoon. I'm Kelly Hart. Can you guys hear me? Is it working? With this? Here. Okay. Thanks. Okay, there we go. So I'm Kelly Hart. I'm the Director of Employer Partnerships with the University-wide Career Center. We're over in Minton Hall, so you probably don't actually realize we exist. But we support career services for all 17 schools and colleges for both undergrad and graduate programs.
So we have an interesting soup of people here. Temple University Career Center, Fox CSPD, we have an entrepreneur here. And again, my name is Jung. I'm going to be moderating for the next 30 minutes or so. First question I have for you guys is, what advice do you have for entrepreneurial students looking for internship and career opportunities?
I would say lean on the school. There's plenty of people who want interns. I have way more. So I also am a professor of the Fox New Venture internship program. And we have so many opportunities and a limited amount of students. And there's always like leftover stragglers. So you really have to like talk to people to get introduced. And I think your follow-up game has to be like on point. Because there's, entrepreneurs are busy. And if you're like the squeaky wheel, like you literally will get the butter to remove the squeak, because maybe it's WD-40, but so you just have to like have strong follow-up game. But there's plenty of opportunities. I don't think any student should be without an internship. And there's also plenty of support here. You guys wanna?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Actually, right here, so on this couch, there's 3 different connections to internships. Plus, there's the connection for the internship list that they just talked about. So that's 4 connections right here. I would say when it comes to internships, especially for our entrepreneurial students, you want to be open, because there are a lot of startups, there's a lot of nonprofits that are looking for your skills, and sometimes those internships are unpaid. And I understand that unpaid internships are a privilege. Not everybody can do that. And if you're worried about doing that, come have a coaching appointment and we can talk about it. But at the same time, if you really want to know what it's like to build a business and you're working with people building a business, they don't always have the budget or even maybe the infrastructure to pay you. But on the flip side, know your worth. Have goals going into that internship and making sure that if you're giving your time, you're getting skills, you're getting connections, you're developing yourself as a professional in response to that which you are giving to the employer.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on what Meg said. Ask questions. Brands are great, and you could say, oh, I worked for so-and-so company, but being able to actually come out with real tangible skills, you need to be asking in that interview, what are some skills I should anticipate to grow in this internship opportunity? It's not a bad thing. An interview is not just an opportunity for them to ask you questions, but for you to be asking questions of that employer. Is there any kind of onboarding? Which in a lot of places there isn't. You're just, hi, you're in the fire. So asking those questions up front to kind of realize, what is this opportunity, and am I going to get out of it what I'm worth and the time I'm putting into it? And then show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Handshake? oh my God, you just made my whole day. So that's what my team facilitates and manages, is the Handshake platform. So all of the employers on there, all of the jobs and internships, our team is responsible for that. So if you ever see a job on there and you haven't heard back from that employer, please let us know. I know that's the biggest concern we hear from students is I've applied and I haven't heard back. We're happy to do that kind of outreach and make sure that you're getting answers. Thank you.
So that's, is the mic on? Is the mic on? Cool. I don't know what's happening, but all is cool. All right, so that's phenomenal, because the next question I was gonna ask is, how can entrepreneurial students be connected to these opportunities? So, you know, I remember when I was going to Temple here, everyone kept saying like, network, 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 and like my perception of network, guys, was like me sweaty in my suit, going into this like room with my resume and sweating, okay? But in reality, I think networking is literally like after this panel, saying hi to Kelly, Meg, Heather, okay? Getting to know other people, what they do, exchanging contacts. We talked about Handshake. Any other resources? How else can students get connected to opportunities through Temple?
So I strongly encourage LinkedIn and making sure it's actually up to date, that you have a banner image, that you have a headshot. If you didn't know, the Career Center does offer free headshots. You can schedule an appointment on Handshake. We will send it to you through TU SafeSend. It's professionally taken, looks great. You don't have beer in it or other friends and things like that. You want to make sure that you're putting your best self forward. But then also, again, utilizing the network that you have. You know, making sure that you are connecting with your professors, that you are connecting with folks that you know have side gigs and businesses. I was just telling a story earlier, a student that had declined an offer for an internship last semester, and now they don't have one, and they're kind of freaking out. And so they came in and met with one of our coaches, and the coach came to me and said they're really interested in Lockheed. I emailed the Lockheed contact and said, are you still looking for interns? They said, yes, connect me directly with that student. I'm happy to talk to them. And so it was literally 2 emails that happened, and now hopefully the student's going to get their internship with Lockheed this summer. So making sure that you're utilizing the resources that are literally right here on campus.
I would like to apologize. I think I'm the person that's responsible for the sweaty event where there's no suit in the room. So beyond what Temple, what Fox offers, Philadelphia itself is a community of entrepreneurs. And if you're looking for that like tech startup type of experience, make sure you're following Technically Philly. Do people know what that is? Like Philly Tech Week happens in May. I'll follow up with the event organizers and make sure I send links to these websites. There's also Philly Startup Leaders. They have a lot of events that are connecting the community with entrepreneurs. And I know not everybody, when you're thinking about building a business or being an entrepreneur, you're not like coding for like a social media platform or like building a new tech tool. Like some people are thinking about like opening a restaurant or doing something that's more community driven. So get involved in places like the Philadelphia Citizen, Impact Philadelphia, and you can network with people that are passionate about what you're interested in, and then connections can deepen from there.
Oh, can I get that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. Also, don't be afraid to slide into the DMs, because if you're offering free work, essentially, you know, you're not gonna get hired if you don't have experience, right? And sometimes the experience that you need won't pay you, but if you reach out to a founder, which most founders in Philadelphia are very accessible, and you say, hey, you know, I'm interested, I saw you XYZ, I'm interested in doing XYZ for you, most likely they're gonna give you a shot. So like, don't put yourself in a hierarchy. Don't think like, you know, they're way up there and you're over here. Like, we're all on the same level. And like, you know, it also shows like courage to like reach out, you know, from being a student to reach out for an opportunity that you actually want. So that makes you stand out too. And then the other thing I would say is like, yeah, like, you know, the connective tissue are people like us in these organizations to be able to advocate for you. So the way that she advocated for that student in Lockheed, like find you advocates. Like, make sure you're connecting with your advocates and staying in contact, because like filling out application upon application won't do as much as like, you know, an actual person who knows an actual person. So, yeah.
Can I add one more thing? I would be remiss if I didn't plug this center. This is the best place to get connected with opportunities. Make sure you're taking advantage of the Beaver Gospel as well as the mentorship opportunities that you get through right here at the IEM.
So, I want to piggyback about finding advocates, because like, guys, okay, well, first of all, we talked about also headshots. Can we get a raise of hands? Who has a professional headshot? Keep them high. Okay, all right. So the rest of you guys need to get professional headshots, right? Advocates, your professors. Make sure you have phenomenal relationships with your professors, okay? And it doesn't have to be just your professor. It can also be advisors for different student organizations. They're the people who can write recommendations for you when it's needed, right? Second recommendations, references, okay? So a couple things to keep in mind. We are going to go into our second question. So, how can entrepreneurial degrees and entrepreneurial studies be applied in the workplace? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think like the root of entrepreneurship is, you know, leading, right? And taking it upon yourself to start an initiative. And entrepreneur, I'm sure you guys have heard that word, that's someone who takes initiative internal of an organization. So I think, yeah, just developing your leadership skills will help you entrepreneurially internal of organizations. I don't know if that's oversimplified, but yeah, just be a leader, have your own ideas, thought leadership, right? Like writing articles, creating programs, suggesting solutions to ongoing issues. Like that's, I think, the entrepreneurs essentially, like we're basically problem solvers. Like, oh, can't eat today? Okay, gotta find money for food. You know, like it's that simple. Yeah.
And then to piggyback off of that, I would say when you're looking for a job, so many students in your major when they come into CSPD for an appointment are looking for that small business only because they're thinking, I'm an entrepreneur, I need to start my own business or I need to do something with a small company. That's not necessarily correct. You don't have to start there. I worked in tech startups at the beginning of my career, and I will tell you that's where I gained most of my skills. But the fact that I also worked for some big companies like Madison Square Garden is what also opened doors and allowed me to really understand the needs of the clients that we're working with once I got into that startup. So I will say when you are looking for a job or you're in an interview, focus on those skills, problem solving. A great tip is just to read the syllabus of the classes. They will tell you, your professor will tell you exactly what they were teaching you in that syllabus. If you go to your required courses, you will know that you are teaching project management skills. There's a market research class that is part of your major as well. Design thinking. If when you're looking for a job, don't necessarily look for founder, entrepreneur, search by design thinking, and you'll see all the positions at larger companies that come up that are looking for you as well.
So I definitely wanted to expand a little bit on the problem solver. It really is. You know, I'm here and I'm an employee of Temple University, this gigantic institution, but ultimately I work in a center of about 15 people and I supervise a staff of 4. And that's where the rubber meets the road for us. And we have projects that we work on, and we're never stagnant. We're never sitting there saying, okay, we're gonna do the same thing every year. It's students are different, what do we need to do, how are we gonna engage them? How do we solve that problem of students saying, I have no interest in talking to any employer or going to a fair and doing any of these things. And so we're constantly, you know, problem solving and setting up, okay, let's try this. We're hosting all of our events this semester in IEI because we know this is a neutral place where all students are welcome. You know, we're not in Annenberg, we're not in Ritter, we're not in Alter, because we know students identify very closely with their school or college, and we're a function that is open to all students. So that's something where we're now able to partner with a new department within the organization and then we can shout out those kind of wins where we're having more students coming out. So that type of problem solving and those types of wins, that's where it's at. That's where you're able to really critically think and, you know, design thinking and looking at those different ways to be creative in your role. And even though I'm with this very large organization, I can speak to very specific areas where I've overseen my staff to really move the needle with student engagement. So just making sure that you look at it, even though it might not be the company you want to be at, think about the actual skills that you're bringing and learning, you know, bringing to the table and then enhancing, because that's really where you can take that with you and move, you know, into your own organization. And then I did just want to highlight, so I came from Aramark before Temple, and I was a recruiter at Aramark, and I can't tell you how many students that I met that said, oh, I want to open my own restaurant. And I was like, okay, so tell me about health insurance. And they were like, what? I just want to make some food and make people happy. And so it was, hey, let me show you some of the other aspects of starting your own business and things you might encounter, and come and work for us and learn great skills, but maybe don't worry about everything all at once. And you can learn some really critical skills about food safety and cost containment and some of these other areas. So even if it's adjacent to your goal, it might be a really great opportunity for you to grow skills that you will take into your own business.
So the last thing I want to talk about before we break into a Q&A session, I want to talk about the 9 to 5 and 5 to 9 life that you guys are probably expecting if you're looking to start something of your own after school. So, okay, you go to school, you graduated, you got a 9 to 5 job. How are you going to spend the rest of your time? 5 to 9, the weekends. So I wanted to get maybe a second opinion here about how can the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9 structure be beneficial as an entrepreneur. Heather, was there a time, did you live this 9 to 5 and 5 to 9 life?
I had 2 jobs, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I graduated Penn State, I came back, worked for the NAACP National headquarters, but the office that was in DC, and then I also had a hospitality job at night. And so I got like both sides. Like I got to learn nonprofit and how nonprofit interacted with business. And then I also got to be kind of like entertainment and hospitality. And I learned great people skills at Penn State because, I mean, what do you do there besides socialize? And came, socialize more in every, so I think the socialization and like the business development skills that were learned like in those experiences really helped. I didn't know when I was your age what I wanted to do, honestly. And I'm looking back at it now, and I'm like an embodiment of, you know, a businesswoman, and I've like had the experiences. But when I was your age, you know, and in class, we were learning things theoretically. Like it wasn't like applicable, right? And so like I think we look at like people who are older than us who know what they're doing and have got it going on, but we don't think about the years of like, you know, failures and you know, not being sure of ourselves. And sometimes I'm not sure of myself, and it still happens, and that's a normal thing. But like I think like when you come out of school, you expect to have like the dream job, and that's just not it, because you have to actually gain the experience, and also to be an entrepreneur, you have to learn what you don't want to do. You know, like that student who just wanted to cook, like they didn't realize that they had to actually run the business behind it. You know, when I started my business, I just wanted to serve clients. I didn't realize I had to do all of the actual like, you know, invoicing and administrative stuff. So, I mean, just give yourself some time. What was the question? Oh, 9 to 5, yeah. Make money, right? Like, obviously you have to pay for things. Right. So like, find a way to do that, but then also like, find something that's not sucking your soul. If something's sucking your soul, learn about it, note it, don't do it again, and find another opportunity. But like, you guys have so much time, right? I know you feel like rushed and you're probably comparing yourself to like other people, but like, don't do that, because like, there's only one you. And just take your time learning, and don't be afraid to fail.
So I don't think I've ever
all of that, all of those great things. But I also would say if you are in a 9 to 5 and you know it's not what you're really looking for, don't just dial it in. Like, really maximize what you're gonna get out of that opportunity. You know, make sure that while you're there, like, build your social capital, network with people. There's people that I reach out to now that are like former mentors that I haven't seen in person in like a decade. But if I need something and we're reaching out and talking to each other, whether it's like little messages on LinkedIn or just texting and staying in touch, take those opportunities and maximize them. Don't just think of it as, well, this is my paycheck, I'm out of here. Because honestly, that leaves an impression too. And no matter where you're working, you're probably gonna ask that person for a reference. So make sure that you really are maximizing that opportunity. And then on the flip side, so I've been a recruiter, I've interviewed hundreds upon hundreds of students, and now I work with students all the time. You guys are gonna make mistakes, and you really need to accept that. So many students I talk to are so afraid to admit that they failed at some point, and at everything, I hate the P word, nobody's perfect, nothing is perfect. So take those failures and grow from them. And when you're engaging with people, talking about, you know what, I tried that and it bombed. Like, I came here to Temple and was so excited to throw my first career fair, and I called it an expo. No one frickin' showed up because they were like, what the hell is an expo? And I failed miserably, and I was really, you know, bummed, but it was like, okay, lesson learned, we're gonna call it a career fair forevermore. But it was a great learning opportunity, and I didn't say like, oh, well, someone else called it an expo. No, I championed that shit, and it went really badly. So own your mistakes, own your failures. It is really, really critical, and it also gets you so much authenticity in who you are. You know, be that person, and don't be afraid to say, I tried that, and it did not work, but now we're gonna move over here. And I feel like that's something that even just all students today are really, really scared to admit those kinds of things that happen. But I find that some of the best interviews and answers are students that are saying, you know what, I tried this and it didn't work, but I learned that I shouldn't do it that way again. That kind of self-assessment and being able to talk to an investor or anyone about your ability to look at your own self and think, I need to do this differently and I need to make a change, that shows a level of maturity and growth that not a lot of students possess. So embrace that and don't be afraid to talk about it.
Failure is the best experience. You learn more with failure than you do success, right? When someone gives you like negative feedback, that's like a blessing, right? Because then they're actually identifying the piece of you that you can improve. If someone's like, oh my gosh, it's so great, love this, didn't check it, you know, like kind of never gave you, like a compliment's not gonna be as valuable as failing, honestly, or yeah, critical feedback. So just don't be afraid to fail, guys. Go fail. It's gonna be exciting.
I feel like to a certain extent, being an entrepreneur is like being the master of failures and learning how to move forward. So I know I have a couple of my students in this class. So I run Cocktail Culture Co. We're a booking platform for cocktail classes. So originally, almost 10 years ago, the first 4 classes I came up with, one of them was called Shots and Shooters. What was I thinking? People would sign up for our class for 2 hours and make shots and shooters, okay? So you're gonna fail, you know, just get used to it. I'm a really big fan of this like 9 to 5, 5 to 9, picking up skills that you think you really wanna hone in when you're an entrepreneur. So I baked on marketing. And, you know, same story here, I never had like a 9 to 5. It was like a 10 to 10, you know? I bartended, I had marketing clients all throughout, you know, the first 3 years for Cocktail Culture Co. We were making money, but it wasn't enough for me to take home. So, you know, like Heather said, you need to make money, guys. You're gonna have rent, you're gonna have bills, you need to adults, okay? You need to make money, but maximizing that opportunity, 9 to 5, totally. How about we open it up for Q&A?
Sure.
So, what questions do you guys have for us? Questions. All right, we got one question here, first row.
This is specifically for Meg. Can you talk
doing the thing that you might want to do, they love talking about themselves. I love talking about myself. That's why I said yes to this panel today. Use that to your advantage because you can have conversations with people that are doing your dream job and even some people in very high level roles because they want to give back to college students. So if you're not sure how to do that, come to CSPD and we'll show you how. Thank you, Patrick.
Yes, my question is for students who get offers towards the end of the internship, they aren't 100% sure if that's something they want to go forward with or if they still want to explore other options. What advice would you have for them?
You go first.
Okay.
I should say they also they want to have some sort of security going into having a job and whatnot. They want to take it. Might want to take the offer, but they have a deadline and they want to look at other options in case something better comes up, something more aligned with their career goals. What would you go for swaying between the two sides?
So number one, come to CSPD, especially if it's a larger company that we have a relationship with. Sometimes I can be the bad guy and ask for an extension on your behalf. We do have rules here at Fox that, we post them, we have no method of enforcing it, but we tell companies to give students at least 3 weeks to make a decision. That might not be within the timeline you're looking at. So it's important to communicate and be honest with the company you're working at. And you can ask, you can say, I really enjoyed my internship. I think this is like the place I want to be. However, I would like to have some conversations to just make sure I'm making the right decision because I'm looking for a place where I can really build my career. If that's something that the company's not receptive to, then maybe that makes your decision of whether or not that's the right place for you to be. The other thing is going back to that informational interviewing. You want to start conversations and you want to have an idea of what career paths are available to you, what will help you achieve your goals before you go into that internship. Because if you have a job offer but you've never taken the time to explore other industries or other offers before that, even if the company is willing to give you like a month, that might not be enough time to actually have the conversation, get an offer, and make an informed decision. So the more you can do earlier, the better. But on the flip side, also be respectful of the company's timeline. If they're hiring a lot of people or maybe they're a smaller business and they need you to start working right away, they might not be able to give you a super long time to make your decision. So just be transparent and be honest and never renege. If you accept a role, you should take that role because you don't know when that will follow you and when you'll be networking with that person again.
So we come across this all the time, absolutely. It happens to a lot of students. The first thing I would strongly encourage is finding out what your timeline is and having that be really set. So to Meg's point, 2 to 3 weeks is a pretty professional timeline, but I've certainly encountered students that have reached out and said they want an answer in 48 hours. To me, that speaks a lot about the employer. And if you're not feeling comfortable about how they're engaging you professionally, you should say, is this somewhere I want to be? Because is this an organization that is going to allow me to be the professional I want to be? So one of the examples I make a lot is, think of it like dating. Although no one dates anymore, do they? It really just doesn't happen. But be honest with them. Be upfront. And in my opinion, if it was something where, okay, I'm coming back for the fall and you're offering me this role, what is that timeline? To Meg's point, if you were to say, I actually really haven't had an opportunity to peruse more options, could we agree on a timeline of October 1st that I would give you a response to this? So going back and not just saying, I want to keep looking, because who likes that answer? Like, oh, okay, so you're not sure you want to date me, you want to go out and hang out. Well, let's give a timeline and say, I want it to be this deadline. Very similarly, if you have 2 competing offers, being transparent, that's a great problem to have. A lot of students try to hide it and lie to the recruiter. Why? Why not be like, look, they want me. This is great. I have great skills. So you don't need to rub it in anyone's face, but be able to say, I do have a competing offer right now. What is the timeline that we can work with? Just be upfront and be honest. I really find that is the best way. The recruiters appreciate it. They understand that there's many offers right now. This is a candidate's market. Employers are scrambling. So making sure that you ask the questions to get through that offer process is really important. And if you're gonna decline, don't text them a decline. Be really professional, pick up the phone. I know it's not the most fun conversation, but decline over the phone or in person.
Comcast offered me a job, but I was running the Graduate Student Association for Fox, and I also had my EMC. I was an MBA here, and the EMC is the Enterprise Management Consulting, and it was too heavy. And had I had some advice, back then, I probably would have given them a timeline of when I'd be less busy running organizations and doing capstone projects. But I turned that down, and that caused a ripple effect, right? I'm extremely entrepreneurial now. My circle is so entrepreneurial. Had I been, in a 29th floor office facing south and living like the glamorous corporate life, I probably wouldn't be here. But I don't regret it. So just think about like what's happening in your life, and then try to like plan out, to accommodate. Maybe your life is like extra busy right now, and you just feel stressed by the offer. Just consider all things, and I really love what these ladies said. So thanks.
I thought we had one more question in the back. Okay, so we got Kathy. Can we give the mic to Kathy, guys? Mic coming in hot. Kathy, the mic.
Oh my God, if you all don't know Heather, follow me on Instagram, that's me.
What?
Shout out to so many queens embarking on all different career, like industry-wise, because I'm just proud of you all. And shout out to you all for here to support us in women instruments. I do have a question, because as we mentioned earlier, it's very hard for young people like me to, because ego get in my way so easily. I don't want to admit my mistake. So what I do is, I do want to ask, let's be vulnerable in here. For those entrepreneurs, what are one of the biggest obstacles you have ever met in starting your business so far? And what do you think help you like push through those obstacles?
Can I kick this one? Yeah.
One of my biggest problems, my students know this, I used to be a really bad perfectionist. The P word terrifies me. I have so much PTSD from it. Okay. Used to be a really horrible perfectionist, but I actually replaced that P word with two other P words: process and progress. So I don't worry about things looking perfect anymore. I am shamelessly ugly. Okay, like things on the website, something that I put together and it's like brand new. You know why it doesn't look perfect? Because you made it and you're human, and it's gonna progress. Okay, so I just worry about improving the process that's gonna give you progress. So that's one of the biggest problems that I had. It was actually my mentality, right? It was a me problem. One of the other problems that I had a hard time giving pieces of my work to other people. And you'll deal with this. Doesn't matter what you decide to do. You guys are going to get to that point where you have more years of experience. You have to train other people. You have to show people how to do things. You might have to grow your team, etc., etc. And I struggled with delegating things. But that's also, it's just another learning curve. It's part of creating a process that's going to give you progress. What are your thoughts about obstacles? How about you?
Analysis paralysis.
Oh my gosh, I get it all the time.
Yeah, and you said something about like throwing something up that's ugly. Like, yeah, there's opportunity to iterate, but just getting it done, like, throwing something ugly that's functional up, is okay. But yeah, I won't do that because I need a designer to look at it. Like, I'm literally going to overthink every decision. So yeah, it is my brain, and you'll find that like your productivity is your ability to create, right? When you're an entrepreneur, you're not on a 9-to-5 schedule salary, like if you don't think, your company doesn't work, right? So just having people around you that are gonna get you out of those ruts, and then also having like, I have project management software. I use Notion, and when I wake up and I'm depressed, because sometimes it happens, you know, sometimes my bank account goes lower than it needs to go, I look successful. People introduce me as successful. I don't feel successful all the time. Like, I just started payroll. I just have to adjust to like having payroll, right? Like, these are like different levels you get to, but at every level there's learning, right? Like, I have to learn things and teach them to people. I can't just like sit on it myself, and that's the only way that my team is going to excel, is if I am pushing them to excel. I work for my team also. Like, there's no hierarchy. Again, like, it's not boss and then team members. It's Heather in the weeds with them, hoping that they show up the next day, knowing that they will, because my leadership at least is strong with the team. Like, my team's not leaving me if I can't pay them 1 week. You know, like, that's an accomplishment for me. But like, the other downside is that, like, can I pay them? You know, like, there's all kinds of like mental things that are going on. It's financial. Yeah. It's financial, mental, honestly. Like, it's really like, that messes with your head. That's my challenge, my head.
I'm so glad I pretty much created my own business.
Yeah.
So my brother is actually an entrepreneurship graduate from the Fox School of Business, and I have no idea what he does. I just know that he has his own schedule. One time he had like a big cupcake emergency about something, and he has people pay him a lot of money to make experiences happen. And originally, when he graduated, it was like pre-Canva. It was when a lot of people didn't have that like visual design skills. So that was a lot of what he was bringing to the table. And he realized that as technology grew, people didn't need to pay him for that anymore. People could get that in-house. So he transitioned more to events during COVID, because that is a skill to be able to do an event and do an event safely now, as well as to public speaking. So I am completely not answering the question because I wanted to talk about my brother somehow. But I will say what I learned from him, and what I'm so impressed with him, is that he never stopped learning. Every level you learn. And he had to pivot what he did in order to serve his clients and keep his business going.
So I'll just relate it in a very microcosmic way to what I learned when I became a supervisor. So when I was working individually, I was a taskmaster, and I could get things done, and I had control, and everything was great. And then I got a team, and I somehow had to communicate my vision to 4 different people that all communicated very differently. Some of them needed a lot more detail. Some of them were like, give me 2 words and I'm out. I will figure this out on my own. So being able to communicate your vision effectively can be really hard. So understanding, that was sort of my struggle. If I think about, you know, eventually for many of you, you are going to hire folks and bring them on board and expect them to be, you know, fulfilling your process. And being able to just effectively communicate your expectations is probably something for me that was the most challenging. And I learned that the hard way when I said, you know, here was a project. I went over it for about 5 minutes and then said, great, we'll meet again in a week. And they came back in a week. And did they technically do what I asked them? Yes. Was it what I wanted? No, like not at all. But I realized I can't rip them up for this because it was me who screwed up. And I didn't explain my expectations. So that would be something I would just impress on folks, is that even though it's in your head and you're like, oh, I have this great vision for what I want to do, if you can't communicate that effectively, eventually that can come around and kind of bite you in the butt. So just making sure that you're able to take that vision and share it with folks.